All right, thank you. How's everyone doing today? I know it's been a very, very long time, and at the risk of sounding like a preacher, I want you to look at the person next to you and tell them, you're lucky you stayed till the end. And say it with some oomph in it, right? You're lucky you stayed till the end. I'm glad to be here with you guys today, and I'll try to keep it short. What I'm going to be talking about is a principle. A principle is something that applies. It doesn't matter your race, your religion, it doesn't matter whether you're an established company or a small company. We're talking about something that is foundational. And it doesn't just apply in the workplace. It applies in every type of organization, relationship, community structure that we set. I won't share anything about myself, you can read over there. But I was asked to come and talk about how do you create or how do you build a great place to work? And when you think about the concept of building a great place to work, it's at the heart of it is asking the question, how do we make our organizations more successful? Now, please take note, never confuse profitability and success. There are profitable companies that are not successful. Profit is a factor of your revenue and cost. True or false? True. Right? If I'm profitable, I'm making more than I'm spending. True? Yep. Your success is a factor of your ability to expand or to use your potential. Now, we say it all the time. It's been said so many times this afternoon, morning and afternoon that, oh, I'm sorry, I'm stepping on something. Forgive me. I kind of like to move around a bit. Thank you. I'll stay clear of that. We've talked about the fact that your people are your greatest asset. However, unfortunately, most organizations really are not tapping into the potential of their people. And so you really have to question, how successful are we as organizations? We could be profitable, but are we really successful? Now, what I'm sharing with you, like I said, is going to apply to you at work. It's going to apply to some of you at your houses. I do sessions, and I do sessions with senior leaders and leaders across organizations. In fact, that's where Oji and I met. He was in one of my classes. And in those classes, it comes up over and over again where people realize or come to the awakening of the fact that even your house, does somebody work in your home? Yes, now. House girl, whoever it is. The question is, so if you don't even have a business, I'll pose it to you, is your home a great place to work? Or how do you build a great place to work out of your home? So let me start by sharing with you. Yeah, and I have to learn how to use this. Forgive me. Okay. I was in Ghana this week. I just got back from Ghana late yesterday, and I was gifted this book. And when the person gave it to me, I kind of laughed because it's about 690 something pages. And I like to read. I do read quite a bit. As I listen to everybody here, one of the things I always say, and if you don't take anything else away, read. There's no substitute to it. You've got to read, you've got to develop yourself. So I looked at the book and I thought, okay, 690 something pages, I doubt I'm going to read it. In fact, the book is a textbook, so I thought, why the heck am I going to read a textbook? But I picked it up in the airport, and before we landed in Nigeria, I had gone through a third of the book. And I was just completely immersed in it. The book really talked about entrepreneurship from a Ghanaian context. And they were talking and giving real life examples of successful Ghanaian entrepreneurs. Things that they had done well, things that they had learned from. And there were two things I picked from the first 200 and something pages. Two things that jumped out at me. The first thing was, it was really interesting to see how many Ghanaian companies had become multi-generational, where one person starts an organization, passes it on to their child, and their child actually does a lot better with the company, right? Typically what happens? People die, and what happened to their companies? In our context, it dies. And we see that over and over again. Well, I was surprised to see so much of that. And I was really impressed because at the heart of it, it speaks to that quote that says, you know what, success without a successor, if this will work with me, is actually failure, right? And it was great to see that these entrepreneurs were thinking of succession. Quite a few people have talked about succession planning here today. In fact, one of the entrepreneurs that was featured had a fantastic business opportunity running a travel agency in Ghana, got a deal with Delta Airlines, and he shut down his travel agency that had about 30 years of experience. It was one of the leading travel agencies in Ghana, and people thought it was madness, but he said, you know what, I realized I didn't have capacity to do both, and unfortunately I failed because I didn't get a successor to succeed me in that organization. Critical thing, but that's the way I want to land today. The second thing that I realized was that in all of the conversations, these guys talked about three key things. First thing was people. And over again, you had them talk about the importance of getting the right people on board. People talked about, unfortunately, some did it earlier, others did it later on in their entrepreneurial pursuit. But one thing was clear, everybody realized that to get to where they needed to get to, they needed to have the right people on board. The other thing they did talk about, so I was going to mention that, Jim Collins in Good to Great, he talked about that whole concept of the good to great, or the level 5 leaders. And he said, very first thing these leaders do is they get the right people on the board. So very consistent. The second thing they talked about was the need for processes. They need to be able to put very firm processes in their organizations, and how they have to break out of the mentality of, oh, we're just a small business, to realizing that even a small business needs structure for it to grow. And then the last thing was conversations around culture. And this is kind of where I'm going to park today, because the truth about it is, you can have a great strategy and still fail. True or false? You find out that organizations, and I see this all the time, just recently there's a private equity firm that invested quite a lot of money, a couple $1 million in an organization I'm very aware of. Great strategy, and guess what? They failed. Why? Culture. They failed to realize the fact that culture was so important to the execution of their strategy. And what do we mean? What do we mean when we say culture? Culture is what? What's culture? The way of life. It's the way we behave. It's the way we do the things that we do. It's the way that we execute on strategy. And execution is more important than developing the plan, right? That plan means nothing if you can't execute on it and execute on it properly. And you find out that you could even have the right people in your organization. You could have the right processes, so to say. If you miss it on culture, you miss it entirely. I had a meeting in November with an MD of a company here in Nigeria. The gentleman is Nigerian by national, but he wasn't born here. He was born in the Far East. And he shared with us, his company does about $12 million worth of business. And he said, Michael, our goal is in 5 years' time, we need to be doing $75 million worth of business annually, and we've got to be listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange. And he said, you know what? He said, the people I have on board right now can't take me to where I need to get to. He said, but here's the even more important thing for me. Even if the people could take me there, the culture that we have right now will not allow us to get there. And so we're going to talk a lot about culture, because again, in the work that I have done for the last couple of years, my background has really been in consulting. And in the work that I've done, I've worked with leaders across Africa, do quite a lot of consulting in the UK and in the US, and the issues are the same. You find out that when it comes to creating a great place to work, it demands a high level of intentionality. And not a lot of organizations are very intentional about it, unfortunately. And you find out that you have people who go into organizations. Some of you might be in this situation, or you might know people who are there, full of energy when they walk into the organization, full of ideas, and then give them 1 year, and what has happened to them? Completely dead. They've lost all energy. Why? The culture. The culture that they met there has killed the enthusiasm, the energy, and all of that. And so even though they came with potential, they end up just dying away, like a plant that starved. But put that same person in another situation where they have the right culture, the right environment, and the blossom. And what you find out then, that the fault was not in the seed. The fault was in the environment. And very often, I hear entrepreneurs in Nigeria, not just entrepreneurs, I hear MDs of publicly listed companies complain about their people. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I sit down there and I ask them the question, I raise it up to them that, guess what? If you don't create the right environment, you're not going to get your people to give you the very best. I'm not sure who mentioned about parasites and symbiosis earlier on, right? But you find out that a lot of times the relationship that you have between an employer and an employee is very parasitic, one way or the other. One person wants everything, and the person wants it. In fact, even when employers talk about employee engagement, they talk about the fact that, hey, we want to be able to get the best out of our employees. It sounds good, but if you think about it, who is that thought centered around? The employee or the employer? The employer. Saying, I want to get the best out of them. When you're thinking culture, you're going beyond trying to get the best out of them. You're trying to create the environment. And when you create the right environment or the right culture, you find out that employees are naturally engaged. They're willing to give discretionary effort to get your work done. Beyond that, you find out that innovation thrives in a situation or in a place where, or a culture where the culture is a great place to work. But ultimately is that when you've got engaged employees, you've got innovation, you've got creativity thriving, performance at an individual, team or departmental and even organizational level increases. Now, we can say that makes sense, but you're probably sitting there and asking me, Michael, is there any data to support this? And there's lots of it, lots of research that's been done. London Business School did one, but I'll share this one with you. This was done by Russells. Russells are the authors of the Russell 3000 Index. And the question they asked was, hey, are companies that have a great workplace culture, do they do better than their competitors? What you find out on this, I hope I do this right, fantastic, is they took all the companies that were listed on the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For list in the US, which we produce, we publish it with Fortune magazine, and they looked at the publicly listed companies. Of the 100, 67 of them of the 100 companies, 67 were public. So they took those publicly listed companies and they benchmarked their financial performance against the Russell 3000 and the S&P 500. So these are the indices where these companies, or the index where they're listed. And what they found out was very, very clearly, these companies outperformed both indices. Now, some people might look at this and say, you know what, it was a lucky year. I mean, they're just looking at 1 year. So Russell's did something. They went back and they looked at the data over a 13-year period, beginning from 1997, going all the way to 2009. And if you invested $100 in the portfolio of the 100 best companies, and $100 in the Russell 3000, S&P 500, at the end of that 13-year period, in fact, they extended this to, there's a newer version of this now that goes to 2014. At the end of that period, what do you notice? Completely outperformed, right? They did much better financially, almost 2.5 times better than if you put the money in the average performance of those portfolio firms. Now, it didn't matter whether the economy was good or the economy was bad. When everybody dipped, they were still better than the general economy. Bottom line is, being or creating a great workplace culture is good business. In fact, very, very good business. Now, the question you probably ask yourself then, oops, and I'm so sorry, I don't know what's going on here. Something's going on, but don't worry about it. Anyway, the question you'll probably ask yourself then is, what is a great place to work? Let me give you a very short definition that I use and we use as an organization. That a great place to work is a place where three things happen, right? Employees trust the people they work for, they have pride in what they do, and they enjoy the people that they work with. If I told all of you to sit down and think of just the best work experience that you've ever had, right? Think about the best work experience you've had, whatever it is that you come up with, in terms of what made that place a great place to work, will probably fall under one of those three things. Now, that's the perspective of an employee, saying, you know what, these are the things that I would be looking for. And when it comes to things of trust, issues of trust relate or deal with our relationship with the people that we work with, especially the organization that we work with. So the question to you, as a leader, as an aspiring entrepreneur, when you do set up your company is, hey, how do you foster trust in your workplace? Because if you don't have trust, you have a deficit that will set your company up to fail. You're setting yourself up to fail from the beginning. You can have people who are engaged based on money, but is that sustainable? Absolutely not. If you give them, somebody else is going to come and give them a little bit more. Or their needs will increase, as Ola was sharing earlier, and as their needs increase, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask for more. right? So it's not just about money. Money is important, it is important, but you find out that what's most important is trust. From a manager's perspective, a great place to work is a place where you achieve organizational objectives with people who give their best and they work together as a family. But again, it's all in an environment of trust. So the question is, how then do you build trust? As you're building your organizations, you want to start thinking about this. How do we really build trust in the workplace? And I'll use a simple model. I won't go through all of it, but I'll just mention a few things there. That what we've done, based on the research that's been done over the last 30 years at Great Place to Work, is we found out that leaders and entrepreneurs in organizations that are great companies to work for are adept at doing 9 things very well. Very first of that is inspiring their people. What does it mean to inspire? Someone help me. Anyone? Inspire. Influence. What else? Motivate. Is inspiration motivation? How many people say yes? You have to raise your hand. You just said motivate. Now I had so many people say motivate. Nobody said in their hand. Is inspiration motivation? Inspiration is not motivation. We don't have time, but inspiration is certainly not motivation. Now, you can inspire, and when you inspire, somebody can get motivated, but the motivation comes from them. Typically, when we talk about motivating people, you are the one, it's an external thing. Inspiration elicits that motivation from inside. It's self-motivation. Now, to inspire people, really you've got to do 2 things for them. You've got to help them see the goal, and you've got to help them see how what they do fits into that goal, right? And so it's the entrepreneur who is a tailor, or sorry, to be politically correct, fashion designer, right? That has a tailor, and you're not just telling that tailor, you've done very well. You're actually taking that person to the wedding, and you're showing that person, the couple in their traditional attire, smiling and saying, you know what, that was you. That was all you. And you didn't just make an attire, you created smiles. You created a memory that will last. The next time you give that guy something to go and sew, guess what he's working for? He's not working for the money. He's looking out for the next smile that he's going to get. And that inspires him to do more. And yet you're not using any money to do that, right? So you inspire them. People have talked a lot about talking to people, right? Speaking and listening, developing people. It's one of those places where we fail as leaders generally. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Nigeria, Namibia, or wherever else it is as a leader, one of my core responsibilities is to make sure that I develop the people that I work with. If I fail to do that, I fail to leverage an opportunity. Because when you invest in people, guess what people feel to you? They feel like they owe you. I remember teaching a class, and there was a 50-something-year-old lady, and she talked about when she started at EcoBank many years ago. She was young, she didn't have any children, she was working with a leader, and she said, you know what, I would do anything for this guy. In fact, he would chase me from the office, and I would take the walk home, and I used to fight with my husband. And he never asked me to do it. But then the question was, why did you do that? She said, you know what, out of everybody I had worked with at that point in time, this was one person that really paid attention and developed me. And he invested in me and tried to build me up. So they develop their people, they care for their people. John Maxwell says this, he says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? They really need to know that you care. One of my aunts has a driver, and I'll just round up on this slide with this. She has a driver that has worked with her for 27, 28 years. And you're probably thinking, wow, why would someone work for you that long? But you know what? From the start, she's just always been generous with him. She bought his first house. His child goes to school, went to school, she paid for his children's school fees. His first daughter she sent abroad to get her undergraduate and her master's. She paid for the girl's wedding. The girl's wedding, quite a few MDs of banks came for that wedding, right? I wouldn't mention her name. A lot of you will know her if I did. But you know what? At the heart of it, you then begin to understand why this guy is committed. I shared the story one time and someone said, that's the place to die. You wouldn't leave that. You just want to die there, right? But there's a reason. There is a reason why you want to be in that kind of place. For lack of time, I'll just move on. So, they do all of those things. But you see, here is the thing that I want to draw out. And I've got 2 slides left. Is It's one thing to say we want to create a culture of trust, right? And you see it over there. But if we focus only on trust, we will create a very nice, cozy environment. Now, is that necessarily good for business? No, that's not what we're about, and that's not what I'm certainly trying to share with you. The other side of it is, a lot of organizations focus on performance. AKA, especially the banks, financial services, there's that drive, there's that push. But guess what happens when the focus is only on performance? We create a culture of burnout, and people get tired very, very quickly and want to leave. The goal really should be, and this is for you as you think about creating your own organization, is how do I create the kind of culture that does promote trust, but also enables us to perform at our ultimate, right? Let me give you 5 things you can do to get to that, and then we'll go round up. One is define what that culture is going to be. You'd be surprised how many organizations, big, medium, and small, that have no idea and have not been intentional enough to articulate what the culture is that they want to actually imbibe. They really don't understand, don't worry, timekeeper, thank you. They really don't understand exactly what culture will align or aligns them best to actually achieve their strategy. Then the other part is communicating. You've got to communicate the culture, whatever it is that you're trying to do. If it's a culture of innovation, if it's a culture of excellence, share with people over and over again. The third thing is you've got to model it. It doesn't matter, and I tell, when we do culture transformation projects, I tell leaders this, that you know what, it doesn't matter what your HR team, it doesn't matter what your internal communications team sends out. If people see a difference between the message they send out and the message your life and your behavior is sharing, they will discount which one? They'll discount HR. Your behavior speaks tons to them. There's that quote that says, your actions are shouting so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. Right? And so if you're thinking culture, you've got to think along that. Now, support it. If there's a culture you want to establish in your organization, haven't identified that culture, haven't shared it and haven't modeled it, you've got to make sure that everything you do rewards that culture. Rewarding a particular behavior is the best way of getting people to actually imbibe that behavior. And finally, is you've got to protect that culture. And you've got to protect it very, very intently. Now, when I say protect it, it's simply this. There's this quote that I love. It says the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. If you really want to shape culture in your organization, you've got to know what you're not going to take. And when that thing happens, you've got to step up to the plate and say, you know what, in this organization, we don't do that. And there will be consequences, right? Organizations that are successful at that specific, or that regard their culture that much. But it's not only just what you, it's not only just what you tolerate. There's a second side to that was an addition to this original quote that says the culture of any organization is also shaped by the behaviors that you're willing to amplify as a leader. The things that you see and you say, you know what, I wish more people in this organization did this, right? So it's asking you the question, what are the things you're not going to tolerate and what are the things that you're hoping to amplify as an organization? So finally, when is the right time? Now, I'll tell you this, we were in a conversation in my office one day and we were talking about paternity leave. There was a ranking that came out of the best companies to work for dads. And they talked about the amount of paternity leave that some organizations gave, highlighting the likes of Google with 4 months, and then Virgin. Do you know how many months Virgin is giving male employees in the UK and Switzerland right now? They're testing it right now. Guess how many months? 2? No?
6?
No?
6?
No? 1 year. And you're probably asking, now they carry belly. But even the people who carried it, we're not giving them that over here. So you know what? They're doing that. And somebody brought up this question, and this is very pertinent to you as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be. The person brought up this question, said, you know what? Is it because they've made money that they can now do these things? And I allowed the conversation to go around a bit, and then I rounded it up saying, you know what? If you have 10,000 naira, and you can't give me 1,000 naira. If you have 10 billion naira, you won't give me. It's just a culture that they've set. And so this new practice is just an expression of something, a new expression of something that has always been there. So as a young entrepreneurial company, I'm not asking you to give 1 year paternity leave. You will go out of business immediately, okay? What I'm saying is understand the kind of culture that will help you grow your business, build your business, give your business a competitive edge, and then begin to do. And the more capacity you have to do more, be authentic to that culture. I started with this picture, and I'm going to end with this picture, because again, culture is one of those things that, like a plant, a tender plant, you've got to be intentional about. Every organization has a culture, good or bad. You can't do without it. It happens instinctively or naturally. Now, the question is, what's your culture going to be like? And you've got a choice. If you want a great workplace culture, it's going to demand intentionality on your side. It doesn't happen by mistake, it doesn't happen by accident. You've got to think about it and really apply yourself to making sure that you create the kind of culture that sets your company up to succeed. Thank you very much.